All right. Well, hello and welcome, everyone. We are so honored and delighted to have you today. My name is Honua Sharifard on behalf of the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning here at Pepperdine GSCP. Before we begin, please let me tell you about the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning. In partnership with Pepperdine GSCP, the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning offers a wide range of programs geared toward the advancement of student scholarship. We serve as a gateway for students and alumni to be able to develop their skills, elevate their voices, and develop their research acumen. Our focus is in the following areas: Scholarship Without Borders Journal, collaborative research opportunities, certificates, workshops, and seminars, publication and conference presentation support, among many, many others. Through our respective programs and opportunities, we strive to enhance the student experience and ensure that our students can have access and support in furthering their academic scholarly activity. And we want to welcome you once again to our Native American Heritage Month for the 2022 Speaker Series. We are so excited and honored to have you all here today. Dr. Leahi Hall, our honorable guest, is a child of Hāmākualoa, Maui, and is a recent graduate of Pepperdine's Doctorate of Education and Organizational Leadership Program. A lifelong learner of Hawaiʻi Lifeways, she is grateful to dance and chant the continuum of aloha Hawaii people, expressing their intimate relationships to place. She is a graduate of Hawaiian Language Immersion Schools and is a two-time Women's Volleyball National Champion while at Stanford University. Leahi is a kākoʻo for Oli Honua and Lonoa Honua and sits on the board of two wahine Hawaii-run nonprofits, Hawaiʻi Land Trust and Hua Alanui o Makena. Please welcome Dr. Leahi Hall as we listen to her presentation on continuity and change, belonging to self and community during the doctoral program, Rite of Passage. Welcome, Dr. Hall.
Oh, that was thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I forgot all those Hawaiian words were in there. So great job. You did great too. I am in Hāmākualoa. It's nice to be here with everyone. Just so you all know, there are two halls on this call. The second one belongs to my dad and my mom, Isaac Hall, under the name Isaac Hall here. So they're the other folks that are here. I'm just going to share screen with you all, and I'm hoping to learn a little bit and engage with you folks. I'll be pausing on multiple occasions and asking for your input. So whether you want to contribute in the chat or come off mute, I would love to hear from you and engage with you. Okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, here we go. Let me just get this set up and share screen the right way. Okay. And then, oops, sorry, hold on. Okay, so you guys got a little bit of background shared, and this is an image, I guess, of the rites of passage and one that I'm currently on right now. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see my teacher, who is this lovely lady here, and she is the same lady that you see sitting on the right. So I just so happen to have the great honor and luck to learn from a Hawaiian ritualist. She's a lover of environment, and her family tends to the Pele family, the Pele clan. So they tend to magma, but it's much more than that. It's the evolution and the creation of the Hawaii landscape. So I learned chant and dance from her as a child, and then also now as an adult. Big gap in the middle, but happy to be with her again. This middle image is, you'll see I am second from the left hand, right next to the single gentleman in our group. And my parents are in this picture as well, but that's the other Hawaiian language immersion program that I graduated from 1st through 12th grade. And this was our rite of passage once we graduated from high school. So I can only share with you where my maturity level is currently at with Hawaiʻi Lifeways as of November, is this 26? What? I don't even know the date, the 23rd, it's the 23rd. So as of November 23rd, I'm not a gatekeeper for Hawaiian knowledge. I can't tell you what you should or shouldn't do in terms of Hawaii, but I can share with you a little bit of what I've come to learn from preschool up until this ripe 30. I've recently made 39. So thanks to my parents for suffering through the 39 years on earth. Okay. So what I thought I'd share and engage with you folks a little bit about is this concept of, in English, it'd be called nature. but some ways that we might be able to relate to our places and where we are at through a Hawaiʻi Lifeways, through a Hawaiʻi lens. And so we'll start off here, just that words shape us, and to know a place is to speak its language, and to know a people is to know their stories, their mythos, their cosmos. And so we'll explore that through Hawaii, through two words, Hawaii and aloha. And then this, just a reminder, not everybody has the great fortune to learn in their indigenous language, or I'm very grateful and privileged to have the opportunity to have learned in Hawaiian. Okay, so let's explore Hawaii and aloha. Okay, so we're gonna break up the word here, kind of, I don't know, we call it sacred taxonomy, whatever you want to give to it. If you want to go back and look at like Latin roots of words, and that's a fun practice too. So Hawaii, ha is breath, and these are rigorous paraphrases. When you look in the Hawaiian dictionary, you'll just see tons of possible translations, and that's part of the poetry of place, right? Which makes it living and dynamic and really spacious. But just for the amount of time that we have here today, I'm just going to ask you to trust the rigorous paraphrasing. So ha is breath, vai is water or spirit. And what it's pointing to is the ability to be like water and spirit, and the permeability of one's being to place. And then E, that last E that you see at the end there, is the spoken or the supreme. So if we kind of trouble through combining what that's pointing to, it's the supreme ability to breathe in one's own permeability. And that's like, wait, what are you even talking about, right? So we'll talk about one access point, and it's basically pointing to what a lot of folks point to, which is how can you be in the present? What are access points so that you can fully be in the present? Okay, so Hawaii. So in this way, Hawaii is less a geographical place, and it's more a state of being, and it's a relationality of being, and it's one's arrival to a space of island consciousness, right? Because you see in this image, we are a chain of islands in the middle of the vast Pacific Ocean. So there are certain things that are going to be much more important for our context in Hawaii than perhaps elsewhere. One of them being small islands, not a lot of access to things until shipping industry or shipping and airlines came about. You just had to rely on each other and the natural elements around you. So certain things become important. Esther Perel always talks about every relationship exists within a context and has a hierarchy. So this is our context, right? You see in the background image, our context of how these words are coming to be and shaping us. Okay. So basically, Hawaii, island consciousness. What does that mean? What does it mean to grow up in this place and have this island consciousness? And it's reminding us of all of our sensate experiences. And I'm still learning all this stuff, so it may sound great, but I probably am I like to use my thinking intellect much more than my sensuous, smell. I don't often pause to smell and feel, and to see. I'm not in the present moment. And so this is as much a reminder to me, coming back to this and talking with you all about this, than it is telling you what I actually do. It's the goal. Hawaii is the goal. Okay. So if this is the case, right, we're thinking about island consciousness and permeability of our being to our spaces, then aloha is the invitation. And aloha, when you come to Hawaii, people do a great job of marketing it, and it's a beautiful word. And so oftentimes you get the really superficial descriptions of aloha, which are hello or goodbye. And then people will talk about it a little bit in terms of sentimentality. But when you break down the word, alo is face to face or in the face of something. So presence, right? And then ha, breath. So it's pointing to your reflection, that you are in constant exchange, right? Whether it's your breath exchange with plants around you and contributing to the carbon cycle, right? Or it's just the permeability of your body, and that you are a reflection of everything you see in your environment. So the invitation to a Hawaii state of being is to be in reciprocal exchange, right? It's knowing that there can be no other reality than that I am in constant exchange with my environment. That relationality, that even if I'm in my major thinking zone, there is no, it is equally true that right now the environment is communicating at me. Now, whether I'm mature enough to like understand the message is a whole nother thing, right? And that's the dedication to cultivating relationship. Okay, so we're in constant exchange with our present environment. And let me go to the next thing. So part of what we're kind of troubling through here in the cosmos of things are stability and change, and this will continue to evolve. So one of the questions that Esther Perel asked that I really like is, were you raised for connection or freedom? Were you raised for relationships or tasks? Were you raised for belonging or becoming? Were you raised for loyalty or autonomy? So as you look through these expressions of perhaps more stability and expressions of more openness to change, and you think about how you approach the world, where do you fall? So I would love, I'm gonna ask you folks, I'm gonna stop share for a second. Well, actually, I'll keep that up just so you guys can see it. But if I could get at least 3 people to hop in and share whether they lean towards connection, whether they lean towards freedom. Where do you fall on these spectrums? So I'll go first. That's the right thing to do. I think I shared this with you folks. Despite talking about the importance of relationship, I often get stuck trying to complete tasks. And it has been probably the last 18. You guys saw a picture, I think, of my graduation. You did. That one of the first pictures of my graduation from high school. It was in Uniki Ailolo. So we consumed a brain to recognize accomplishing a certain level of understanding. And our teachers played, they understood that we were under a high level of stress. And on a plate, they had put 5 different parts of a pig. And they spun the plate and they said, whatever part of the pig you get is what you need to learn. And we're super stressed out. We're trying to go through this rite of passage. You're also senior year in high school. You probably are thinking about what everyone else is doing, not in a gym with your teachers and your fellow students. But it was curious that when the plate stopped in front of me, I got the back end of the tail. And I had been a leader, I guess, a vocal front person for my class at the time, and I got the tail. And one of the ways I think I've been learning since 18, 17 years old, 21 years later, is the importance of relationships and not just tasks. And so leading from the back, not just driving force at the start. Okay, so you don't have to tell a whole story like I did, but I just wanted to give you guys a little piece of how this has evolved for me over time. Anybody want to share about where they fall here?
I'd be happy to.
Yes, thank you.
So, actually, in looking at all of these, I tend to lean towards stability, but there's a few that stand out for me. One is tasks, because I tend to be very task driven and task focused. And I think the other one is becoming. I strive for belonging, but I end up in becoming, right? It's that I'm always looking for the next thing. I'm always striving to do as opposed to striving to be.
Oh, ditto. I love that. Can we have one more if you guys don't mind?
I'm happy to chime in. One of the things that I'm kind of struggling with is the items that are sort of on one side on the other, because when I think about relationships and tasks, they almost seem like they're not even in the same sphere. It's sort of hard for me to put them on a continuum, which is so fascinating to me. It sort of just breaks my head open. and maybe that means, I think I've always been kind of task driven, but also really an undercurrent of the need for focus on relationships. I mean, it's really a conflict for me. It's really a fascinating kind of opposition. Yeah. And collectivist versus, these are all so interesting. Collectivist versus individualist. I think also I was raised to lean towards individualism, but feel drawn to collectivism. So there's really definitely a strain between one and the other. I've never seen kind of this kind of juxtaposition. It's just really fascinating.
Yeah, I probably should go through the process of like getting it totally, like this, a lot of it is just drawn from like what I've heard and read from Esther Perel, right? But I don't want to throw her under the bus. Like part of this is also like I should vet this myself and go through the EIP process again and like make sure it's an actual like effective tool. So anything you guys see where you're like, I don't agree with that, that's actually wonderful. I hope you will show, you know, where, because everyone here is so thoughtful and has spent so much time cultivating their practices, and whether or not you have a ton of experience with this stuff or not, I welcome you to raise anything that just doesn't sit well with you. And I want to recognize what Erica shared in the chat here. If similar to concepts of self-differentiation versus enmeshment, I find that trying to stay connected and maintain relationships as someone from a collectivist culture actually causes instability. If I'm connected, maintain as someone from a club. Actually, yeah, I find that trying to stay connected and maintain as someone. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm trying to understand. Erica, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about that.
You actually said how I meant to write it. But yeah, you were very accurate. I'm second generation Chinese American. And so I had the dual cultures of like my parents having come here for college and then met here and then had my brother and myself. It's taken me, I'm 44 and I'm in the master's program. And I'm sort of, I'm doing a lot of learning and exploration, and a lot of it I see even such generational differences from boomers to, I'm a Xer, Xennial to Gen X and then to Gen Zs, of how different which generation we are, and the cultural, like the chronological differences of where things are in acceptance. So if I go in like AAPI groups on Facebook, I will see the younger generation saying, you know what? They're pushing for individualism. They're just like, set boundaries, blah, 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 blah. But then I have this fear that if we keep setting so many boundaries, we no longer have a sense of community. And that's like my greatest fear of what's happening in our country, but all over the world. But in any case, anyways, this is so interesting. So thank you.
Yeah. And you know, one of the, however you feel about religion and different religions, and we'll talk a little bit about Hawaii spirituality today. But part of it, at least my understanding of it, is how to live with the questions that can't be answered. Like you just got to live the question through your life. And what do you have? And part of what we're going to talk about today a little bit is the anchoring that at least I've learned from Hawaii culture, so that you can live with the unknown. Which I don't like, obviously, because I went through a doctoral program. So I don't know what to say about that. But anyway, everyone who has good faith practices, I applaud that, because those are really helpful in dealing with the unknown. Okay, So thank you, Erica, for sharing actually hearing your perspective, and congratulations. I hope your master's program is going really well, and I'm super glad that you're doing it for yourself and your community. Okay, let's move on. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so here's another concept of like nature. And the reason why nature is in quotes is because we have no word that means nature. And so we kind of explore it through different reflections, I guess, in Hawaii. Okay, so here's the second concept, is that you're a part of or you're a participant as nature rather than separate from nature. And so this is kind of these two words that we've been talking about a lot, the relationality of being rather than being an observer of nature. And so we'll talk about that a little bit in terms of mo'okuauhau. So mo'o is the continuum. And then mo'okuauhau is someone's personal continuum. It's often referred to as a genealogical chant. And it's just kind of your lineage of embodiment. And so we have a picture right here in some origin stories for Hawaii. This little island called Molokini. So what you see off in the distance is Kaho'olawe, and on the other side of Molokini. So Kaho'olawe is here. On the other side of Molokini is Maui, the island I'm on. And in some origins, Molokini is the placenta for the islands. So this is just like a little point back, like a little wink at like Hawaii origin. Okay, so mo'okuauhau, and I'm going to invite you guys in to share with me a little bit about your lineages. And it doesn't have to be human. It can be plant. It can be thought leaders that have really helped nourish and sustain your journey through Pepperdine's programs. Okay, so in a personal continuum, and typical in Hawaii, I would start with my human relations, and those are the two. So this is, decades old now, because I'm that little person in the middle. And that's the Isaac and Dana Hall you see on this Zoom. But you start with human relations, and you say, you go back as far back as you want. If you, in Hawaii, you could go back to the darkness, and that's fine, but we'd be here for like ever. So it would be o Dina na one hall ko wahine no kane ohe kona ohana noho ia Isaac Davis Hall no nu ene lani kona ohana noho pulaua hana ia keia ole ahi Davis na one hall. So Dana Momilani is the woman, and her family's from Kane Ohea no Ahu. Isaac Davis Hall is the man, and his family is from New England. They resided together, Nohopu, and born was me, and then my name. Then after you do that, one thing that I've learned from my teacher, which I really, really love, you then connect yourself into place names and landscapes and features of the area that sustains you. So, o Haleakala ku'umauna, Haleakala is my mountain. O Pe'ahi ku'ukai, Pe'ahi is my ocean, so you recognize a water source. And o ka ohia ai kameaulu I olu ai ko'ukino. So the ohia ai, which you see here in 03, is a flora. And I'll share a little bit about that. But in Hawaii, you plant your placenta under a tree, and different people have different practices. Sometimes you put it in a particular place, but then you get, I think, some of the superpowers from that tree. So you see my tree here, 03. And then you say olaloa, which is long life. And then you clap, because, you can excite things with clapping in Hawaiian culture. So what I would like to invite you guys to do is, you can do any one of these. You don't have to do all of them, but if there's somebody that you would like to recognize, who has supported your continuum and is part of your sustaining or nourishing lineage, whether it's school or somewhere else. But this would be the opportunity. Since I shared mine, I would love to hear you guys. It doesn't have to be multiple. You can just share one. But one of these would be great. And then what I'm going to do is, after you say yours, then I'm going to say olaloa, clap, clap. And then hopefully everybody else, everybody would collectively say olaloa, long life. Okay. So anybody my teachers have been wonderful about participating, and don't be afraid. anybody else wants to share. Just to recognize, because the other thing it does is it helps us recognize everybody who's contributed to you.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
Okay. So name of my ancestor. So that would be my grandmother on my mother's side. And so do I say her name then? Okay, so she, like me, was Swedish. So her name was Lisa Kullgren. And then what do I do? I'm sorry.
Just say, no, that's okay. I didn't give you guys the Hawaiian language to say. And then I just realized I didn't give you like an English sentence to say. So you can just share with us like somebody who I'd like to recognize is.
Yeah, okay.
My grandmother. And then here are some more than human relations that sustain or nourish me.
Okay, so I can mention like under, wait, what can I say? I'm so sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, that's my fault for not giving you guys, hold on, let me go back. That's my fault for not giving you guys like a template. I should have done that. So you just recognized your grandmother or your great grandmother, I think you said.
Yeah, it's my grandmother actually, yeah.
Grandmother. So someone I would like to bring into the space is my grandmother, and then
Yes, okay.
name. And then here are some of the places and spaces that nourish me, that sustain me.
Ah, okay. So yeah, my homeland, definitely southern Sweden. And yes, definitely the sea, the Baltic Sea. And there's some very specific flowers, early spring flowers and summer flowers that are very significant to my early memories. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for taking us with you to those places. So then we're all going to say aloha and clap, clap. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you. That was so fun.
So one of the cool things about anyway, in Hawaii worldview, when anybody goes on a journey, we all go. And so because we all got to go on that journey, and then we all got to be introduced to your grandmother, and that's really special. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else want to share?
I can share.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, here's someone I would like to bring into this space. My grandfather, David Lucero, and a couple of nature elements that resonate with me. One would be the Pacific Ocean, because I love the water and watching sunsets, and I grew up in SoCal girl, and I actually really love the hibiscus flower. And it always reminds me of Hawaii. And when I finally got to visit Hawaii, I was just really happy to see those. And I also love this juice that we make in Mexican culture. It's called agua de Jamaica, like a Jamaica water juice that we make with the flower.
Aloha. Awesome. Thank you. So part of this, this is pointing to in this practice, the practice of moʻokuʻauhau in Hawaii at least, is reminding you of the anchor. So when we're talking about change and stability, it's anchoring you into a place and reminding you who you can always rely on when change is happening, because change is inevitable, right? So they're setting you up to have some anchor. Okay, so when we see that kind of quote at the bottom from Matsuo Basho, seek not the paths of ancients, seek that which the ancients sought, right? So what are they pointing to in this moʻokuʻauhau practice when they're setting you up with a continuum? It's all the folks that you can call on when you need it, okay? Part of it. I mean, I'm sure it's so big, I don't even know like a tenth of it. Okay, so that's part of it, just the anchoring, the stability. Let's move on. Thanks, you guys. Okay. So moʻokuʻohau connect and increase the value of the relationship, right? So they're elevating the importance of these things. They put it into a practice to remind you, hey, this thing is so important, like keep doing it. So it's sustained itself over generations. And when we connect to landscapes we live on, our water sources, the places, the flora, the fauna that feed and nourish us, it's connecting all those things, so the more than human aspects, into our genealogical line. And at this point in the pendulum swing of what's happening in the world, in Hawaii at least, it's important, it's been important enough to my teacher and her family that they've added this part in that I'm sure the ancestors probably just knew, but they're putting the mountain and the water sources and the flora and fauna back into the moʻokuʻohau practice, so that because of where we are currently, we don't see resources as external, that they really have always been a part of the Hawaii soul. And so it's just dropping those things back in like a reminder, like, hey, don't forget, this is a part of your soul too. It's right in there. So we just say it. I think they're reminding us to say it because we don't, at least I need the reminder. I can say that, that these are aspects that are things that I can actually have a relationship to, which I conceptually understand. And growing up in Hawaii, like I conceptually get that. But I think my parents have a more embodied sense of what that is. And so this is just how we're continuing, and how my teacher's family is continuing to engage with the Hawaii universe, so that it's not only fossilized information. Because if it was fossilized, we would not have these new couple of lines that we add into the moʻokuʻohau practice, right? Okay. At any point when things start to get like, whoa, too many Hawaiian words, or I don't understand what you're saying, just throw up a hand and we'll go a little slower. Okay, you guys are doing great. Olalua. Okay, so here's another one of these thingies. Stability and change. And here it's the same one that you guys saw earlier. And it's kind of pointing to what we've already kind of discussed a little bit. And I'm hoping it makes a little more sense now about how the Hawaii moʻokuʻohau practice, at least, right, helps you connect into the stability side, helps to create the anchor for you. So you see how that practice helps you link in all your different connections and relationships, and they're like telling you, hey, you belong. Just in case you didn't think so, you totally belong. Okay, here we go. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, here's our third concept. So life is always moving towards more life, and life forms and transforms. Nothing really dies. And so religions, they tend to help you try to trouble through like the unanswerable stuff. You know what I mean? And so this one, at least with my current maturity, is you're participating in cycles like of continuous transition. And so it's less about, you hear this kind of lingo right now, and my teacher really has opened my understanding to it, but it's less about, humans saving the land. And more that the land has always been most powerful and is going to do what it's going to do, and the humans need to save themselves from themselves. And so we're going to explore this a little bit through the Hulia and Kulia chants. So these are chants, and we'll talk a little bit about, so in Hawaii culture, oral culture until the written language came about. So they preserved everything through chants. And these are just, generations of data collected over time. Okay, so here we go. Let's jump into some Hawaii data. Okay, so this is my teacher's mom, Dr. Pualani Kākoʻo Kanahele. The chants, it all has to do with elements, so the natural elements, right? So when you look in here, you can see like the clouds and the atmosphere and the snow. And this is on top of Mauna Kea, which was a really big political issue in Hawaii a couple of years ago. Okay, so the chants, it all has to do with the elements you see around you and the fact that you can call out to them and they can answer. They have to answer. Learn the chants. So this was kind of like major for me to hear her say this, because because I don't always, like am I safe in the universe? I don't always trust the universe is going to be there for me, but she's literally telling me, no, like you are the environment. If you call out, they have to respond. That's how it works. Aloha, right? Reciprocal exchange. That's the ethic in Hawaii. So learn the chants, right? Okay. So here we go. And if you saw her and you heard her deliver this, you would laugh, but also be afraid. And that's great. She should be scary. Okay, so this is my teacher. Ke kuhiki aliʻi kanaka ʻole o Hāʻi Lani. Hula and oli are the dance and chant of the environment. And we've been talking about belonging to place. Yeah, so this is one of the ways you belong to place and connect to place. So dance and chant. So you dance and chant the connection. And you are the vessel for the environment in those when you dance and chant. You embody the Hawaii universe when you dance and chant. And you're no longer dancing about it, you are it. So this is, and how do you know? And how do you know you're relating to it? Well, it's the movement. It's the exchange you make when you move. It's the exchange you make when you breathe. It's the exchange you make when you sweat. So for everyone here, what is a song or dance that is a reflection of your connection to something important in your life? Right, for Hawaii people, small islands, middle Pacific Ocean, the land had to be super important to live. Like for them to live, they had to make the land God. Right? So what is a song or dance that, or maybe a wise saying or a phrase, or it can be something funny too. That's fine. It doesn't have to be super serious, but that's a reflection of your connection to something important to your life. You guys want to share? Let's get one, just one. So I'll give you guys a funny one first. So a daily practice for me is riding the bike. And that is an exchange. I have a good relationship with my bike. I try to wipe it down every time after I'm done, but that relationship is important to me. And so I feed it with my time. I make it important and I exchange sweat with it. And I feel like my life greatly benefits because of it. Okay, so it doesn't have to be like super nature. Yeah, but just the recognizing of how we exchange with things that are important to our life. Anybody want to share? Take some time. And then if the question doesn't make sense, sometimes I can be too wordy, which Dr. Miramontes, I'm sure remembers from all the edits with my dissertation. Run-on sentence, run-on sentence. Anybody, an exchange that you make? No pressure. If you guys don't want to share right now, that's okay too.
I think I'm struggling with the construct, like of the exchange. So your relationship with your bike, I'm like, I'm having a hard time applying that analogy, or that it's not an analogy, that context to something in my life. Like that's an exchange of some sort.
Yeah, maybe I didn't use a good example. I think I used the bike because it was like sweat and I like make time for it. But I think there's some kind of relationship, any relationship that you have that's important to your life. How do you exchange to make space or time for that? So the exchange should be time. Like my relationship with my friends is important to me, so I make time.
I guess for me, my relationship with Pepperdine, I give Pepperdine a lot of my time, a lot of my energy. And you see the people laughing on the Zoom because they know, right? I give Pepperdine a lot of my heart. So I guess that would be the exchange.
Yeah, totally. And I think the people nodding along with you are in agreement of just, they see you exchanging, I guess. Yeah. I'm hoping it's really important to you so that it's a worthwhile, because I'm glad that you're there and I hope you're okay. Like that, it's a good exchange for you.
It is. I love what I do and I love the interactions and I learn, I think that's part of it. It's not just what I give, it's what I get. And so that's really important.
That's a good culture that you can just show up and give, and that you can be assured that something is going to come back. Beautiful.
So I
Awesome.
have a question.
Yep.
I don't know if this fits, but I'm trying to understand, so I'm going to try this. So I love to take walks, and I, don't take a walk every single day, but I try to as many days as I can, and try to do sort of a mindful walk. I'm not sure if that really fits, but it feels like it allows me to sort of appreciate the environment wherever I am, even if it's just a sidewalk or wherever it is. I don't know. Does that fit?
Yeah, because yes, I think it does. What we're trying to recognize is what's important to your life, and are you feeding it? Are you feeding what's most important to your life? And the
Okay.
feeding is with time, with money, with any kind of resource that you have access to. How are
Oh.
you making that exchange to feed that connection
Okay.
so that your life, whatever's happening, you want that to happen in your life. Like, it's important to your life. So you're feeding that connection with time, sweat, money, tears.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Thank you for troubling through this with me. Okay. I have so exchange means like a ritual. Yeah, good question, Erica. Yeah, ritual, at least my understanding from my teacher, is attunement to something. So how closely, like if you were to, like, let's say my parents, right? If I wanted to be super attuned to them, like dial the radio just to their perfect frequency, I could probably be more aware of, like, if I were to attune better to my dad, probably that he likes to ask questions and talk. And I'm like on the frequency of like efficiency, which doesn't make me attuned to him. And so the exchange is a little harder. So ritual is attunement and exchange, at least how I understand it from my teacher. So I attune to a certain thing, and then I make an exchange because I'm trying to do something with that resource, right? I'm trying to connect to something. A ritual is you're trying to get something done, right? You're not just going to go to a ritual just because you're trying to cultivate a relationship. My understanding of it. So yeah, the exchange is like the attunement to that thing, and then the exchange you make to remain in a relationship with that resource or with that whatever entity. So if I wanted to attune a little bit better to my dad, the exchange I would make is be less efficiency, more talk. Does that make sense, Erica?
Yes, I was just thinking similar to what Maria does, because I have lived in so many different places, and when I was thinking about it's very different for me because I've always been displaced. So if I said, hey, I'd like to bring in my grandmother because she was always displaced as well, from China, then to Taiwan, then to the United States. And so the thing that I was starting to make a connection is that I've always had dogs, and I have a dog that I run with in the woods or wherever I go, and everywhere we go, I pick up stuff. So I just moved to Northern California, and I have a big collection of pine cones, and I picked up reeds and landscaping stuff, which I look like the weirdo carrying stuff, but and I make sculptures from them. So I have sculptures that were from driftwood from Lake Michigan, and rocks and shells, and I'm like a hoarder. But it's collecting things from the places that I've been into my artwork. I guess that's like my way of making a connection because I'm otherwise displaced.
Yeah, that's like a beautiful way to recognize the importance that those places played, that you like them enough that you carry them with you, because it takes effort to carry them. I mean, it's easier to leave them than to keep taking them along with you. And then, yeah, I love that you're getting to create something and be creative about all of these places. That the other thing that my teacher and her family talk about all the time too is, after a certain amount of time, I mean, there's that whole like each cell in your body like is changed after 7 years, whatever it is, and certain cells go faster than others. But that the second you breathe air in Hawaii and you drink the water in Hawaii and you eat the food from Hawaii, you basically are Hawaii. So all those places, if this helps you, what helped me hearing from my teachers is that you are those places. I mean, they're in you. And especially for my teacher who is super Hawaii. I mean, she's very Hawaiian. But she says, if you are going to have your kids here and you're going to die here, like you are here. So it's state of being versus like ethnicity. And I wonder for you, as you carry those places with you, what of those places that helps you, that you can keep them alive in a state of being, if that helps. And I think you're already doing it by creating. So don't need to think about it. You're already doing it. That's awesome. Okay. One more note in here. Oh no, that's awesome. What you're doing is awesome. You don't even have to think about it. Like your body's already doing it, which is super cool. Okay. Okay. So Hulia. So we talked about, you know, you are the thing once you dance and chant. And Hulihia is, the Hulihia chants are really huge, and we'll talk about it a little bit on the next slide, but really huge transformative events. So this is a picture from Kilauea, which is maybe a year old now. So it's not really a long time ago. And actually it seems like one of the other mountains is waking up on Hawaii Island, meaning like people have dashes ready to go. And so how do you, when you're thinking about stability and change in Hawaii, right, how we're trying to trouble through that tension, that paradox that humans just have to live, stability and change. In Hawaii, land Pele, magma, continues to erupt. So change and transformation continues to happen. And so this bottom left-hand corner, I'm dancing about Kilauea, Halemamo, a crater near there, as a child. And it was a dance my teacher taught me then. And then I'll do one of the chants now, a Hulihia chant. So it's a particular Hulihia chants point to a particular transformative event. And they're usually volcano. These ones are. Hulihia kamona vela hia hia kawahine avela na ohia o dulilia igaua avela anopu ya hio kalwa ai kamumu ke na keke pa hoi hoi ke vela hale mauma uke vela hale mauma uke amalu ka palio ka awe so I'm still getting there. But the thought is that you release the human parts and you let the natural phenomena come into your body vessel. And so that is about an eruption, right? A transformation, a transformative event. Okay. So Hulihia are records of, and like that hot word, yeah, transformative leadership, right? Which is super cool. So these are records of extreme transformation of the landscape and society in Hawaii. And as we've been talking about how Hawaii people relate to place, right? That you're not separate from place. One of the things that my teacher talks about that I love is like this whole idea of climate change, that we're not passive participants in what's going on in our environment. That if you don't like climate change, then it's your job to change your climate. And so how do you do that, right? It's like, I can't control like the big companies. Maybe it is your choice to participate at that level, and that's wonderful. But what you can do in your own space is you make right relationship with your climate around you. So wherever you go, whatever relationships you're engaging with, if you make that climate that sphere of relating balanced and good, then the climate will then change too, because we're a reflection of our environment. And then that kind of brings you back into the power you have in your 2 feet. So if I wanted to do that with my dad, I'd turn my frequency to talking. Okay. So for everyone here, right? There are 2 kind of separate questions here, but where do you go when you need to incite transformation? Because magma is awesome. That means we get more land in Hawaii, like, which is like, whoa, we actually get more land. Like that's amazing, right? But it's also, it balances, it's another one of those tension points between creation and chaos. So chaos is good sometimes. You kind of need it sometimes, right? Sometimes it's really good. So where do you go when you need to incite transformation? Is it a song? Like, do you have a pump up song? Who do you read? When you need to fire up some kind of creative process, some kind of change in the status quo, right? You're trying to change the status quo. You're trying to light it up a little bit, create a little chaos in whatever that homeostasis is with the status quo. Where do you go to light that process up? Does this make sense? Kinda, not really. Okay.
So can I take a stab at this? Because I'm trying to understand. So I don't know if this fits at all, but my kind of immediate reaction is meditation. So that I sort of have to reframe my brain by clearing out my head and doing breathing. Does that fit?
Totally, because the status quo of your brain is maybe too jumbly and you want to quiet it down through meditation, or you want to focus in on something in particular.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how it's not something necessarily like got like a big fiery image here, but then you went to what was appropriate for you, which is perfect. Which, oh no, when I need to like transform something, I've come to meditation. Beautiful. Thank you.
I tend to burn the bridge.
You think about the bridge?
I burn the bridge.
You burn the bridge. Yeah, Dr. Miramontes, you go.
Well, I'm looking at the volcano, the fire, and I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, so if I want to incite change, right? And for me, it's that word incite. It's like, I burn the bridge. I speak, I say the words, and, to have those difficult conversations. But inevitably, if the other side isn't ready for that conversation, there went the bridge.
Yeah, that is something that I'm trying to get better at, is having those difficult conversations, to incite the transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if they're not ready, like, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Do you guys have, and maybe this is such a part of your life that you don't even have to think about it. But do you have a song or a saying that remind you that transformation is part of life? And what I'm trying to point at here is sometimes it feels like life is happening to you. And so where do you go to remind you that, okay, life is lifing?
I actually have two. Along the same lines, it's this concept of being bold. Like, be bold, right? But it stems from oddly enough, Who Moved My Cheese? The concept of what would you do if you weren't afraid? to me was very powerful. It's one of the first books that really had an impact. And so now whenever stuff is happening and it feels like I'm out of control, because I'm a control freak sometimes, I have to, one is be bold, and two, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I think those are my compasses, you know, and kind of not even my compasses, it's more like, yeah, a thing in a boat that steers it. It's that for me.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. That's beautiful. Well, those are great questions. I'm just gonna write what would you do if you weren't afraid down, just so I remember. Anybody else have one that's kind of potent that they would like to share? While I write this down. Okay. So one of the things that we do in Hawaii that you can do wherever you are is we go to those places that have names that point to whatever we want to happen. So here is a picture of Kilauea, because if you want transformation to happen, or you want to remember that transformation is just part of life, you go there. And you're just like, because you're a reflection of your environment, inevitably you get in, and if you drop some sweat, if you chant back, if you dance back, if you just share your presence with the place, right, then you're in relationship with that energy. So here's a example of at least what we do in Hawaii. And if it makes sense for you, and you look at all the names of places around you, and maybe even their traditional names, and then you find out what they mean, that's an access point for engaging these kind of energetics. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Here we go. So let's talk a little bit. I'm so glad Dr. Miramontes talked about fear. And we're going to talk a little bit about power now. So we're going to talk about power. I don't know if this makes a lot. I have a lot of Neptune in my chart. So I like feel things, and it doesn't always like intuitively, and then it doesn't always mean like it makes sense. Okay, so let's drop down in there and see what happens. So in power, we're going to talk about it a little bit in terms of more structure and less structure, even though that's kind of still a power dynamic, right? But so less structure would just be unbridled chaos. More structure would be hierarchy. Let's drop down to this one. Less structure, disregard for the law. More structure, lawful. Less structure, innovation. More structure, continuity. Less structure, freedom. More structure, discipline. So when you think about, and we're thinking about, I mean, I'm bringing this up because we're thinking a little bit about what it means to be Hawaii state of being, right? Because you don't have to be in Hawaii geography for Hawaii state of being to be entirely permeable to your environment. And we talked a little bit about the anchor that relating to a continuum of place and drawing back in those connections of resource and sustenance, those things that sustain you, that allow you to live in their place, right? So that's one of the anchors, knowing you belong. If you breathe the air there, you belong. I mean, not everywhere, yeah. You gotta, like, some places are super sacred and most humans shouldn't be there, and only certain people should be there. Okay. We're on the same page. So when we talk about every relationship happens within a context and has a hierarchy, which you'll start to see from Hawaii hierarchy, right? Because we talked about, so structure, how people have evolved in place in Hawaii is creating a hierarchy of the natural elements and the natural phenomena. We need it to rain here, so we have fresh water. So then it becomes supremely important when the winter season comes. And so those gods, which are just natural phenomena, right? So the really dark clouds that have lots of water in them, those become very important gods. Does that make sense? Because we need the water, right? Humans gotta live, okay? But then there's kind of also an importance to chaos, because that's chaos/creation. And I think what they're pointing at here is they know that in the chaos of Pele, in the chaos of the magma, they also are humans and they can't control it. So we're dancing kind of between these two tension points, right? And not to solve it, because we're not going to solve it. They're just going to be paradoxes that we live. They're both true, right? But how do you live in those tension points, right? And so knowing where you are on the spectrum, on the continuum of things, what it's pointing to is helping you find, and we'll get to this in the next set of chants, but how do you find balance for yourself, right? Climate change the climate. How do you engage so your climate is good? You got to find some balance. So if you're overly structured so that you're so about continuity that you can't innovate, right? So this is the fossil versus like just constantly creating. So all we're trying to do is point towards a little bit together is how we can contribute to being permeable to our environments by finding our little balance in all of these places. Does that make sense to you guys? We getting there? Okay. Does anyone want to comment on any of these? Oh, so fossilized versus dysregulate. Ooh. Yeah. That's okay. Okay, I'm going to ask for participation soon. It's going to come soon. Okay, so here's, there's only two more, but so the next section, right? So the hulihia/kulia. So I just shared with you guys a hulihia, right? So this next part of nature, right, is communion, tending to, caring to, shared life force, right? So it's tending to those connections much more than like good and bad, like you're good, you're bad. It just is. And then knowing where you are in the spectrum, right? So this is where we start to talk a little bit about how do you come into relationship with things. And part of that, and we're going to talk about it in terms of seasonality, but are like, what are those? Because, you know, the Hawaiian people weren't only like in ritual, in like serious ritual, nobody was having fun. Wrong. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But keep thinking about what brings you delight and what brings you awe, what ushers in those states of being, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kulia. So here's a little bit of background on the hulihia and kulia chants. Hulihia is an integral energy in our cosmologies, a natural cycle in our land, sea, sky, and dreamscapes, and manifests again and again in our histories. And looking at these cycles, so hulihia and kulia are cycles, right? There's always a reciprocal and inherent energy that works in consort with hulihia. So keep thinking chaos creation, right? Hulihia, which is the kulia energy. That's its complement. So entwined are the two that we cannot speak to one without beginning to name the other. Implicit in every upheaval is the rising, is the flowering of something new. Okay, so it's kind of like if you were to like think about it in terms of something that's more common culture, it'd probably be yin yang. And everybody has some kind of concept. Most people have some kind of, oh, 5 more minutes, we're gonna go fast. Okay, thank you. So it's a supplication for life. And basically what the kulia chants are doing is recognizing that change is constant and it's the invitation back into balance. So how do you access states of homeostasis in the larger homeodynamic system? If change is the constant, how do you access some kind of balance in that, right? How you come back to some kind of balance? And Ke Alohi Lani, so the place, this kind of like esoteric place, but it's actually visualized. Ke Alohi Lani is the house of Uli. If the gods had houses, which just means perfect conditions for those natural phenomena, the house for Ke Alohi Lani, for seasonal perfection, would be, it's a lenticular cloud, which is a triangle cloud, and it's really dark at the bottom. And there's lots of turbulence that's happening around it, and there's lots of moisture and darkness and rain. And normally when people see darkness, they're like, ah, ooga booga, right? But actually what it's pointing to is you're able to navigate the ups and downs of life, and you can come back to some kind of balance in all of that disruption. And you're striving to find that place of balance in the disruption. And so uli is this entity that is about, we'll go back just so, hold on one second. Uli is this entity that's talking about the really dark green depths of forest, the really dark green blue depths of ocean. That dark color means it's teeming with life, like biodiverse, lots of old growth, lots of new growth is still happening, but that is the color indicator is this dark teeming with life color. So you want to be able to have that ability to be permeable to all of life and still find your balance. Okay, so that's kulia e uli. But what's really interesting about the end of the kulia e uli chants, so you're talking about all these like biological processes. First, the big clouds, then they're going to hit the mountains, and then the rain is going to come down, and it's going to be a big deluge of rain because it's like winter season. So it's not even this like pretty, like, ooh, like sun coming through the raindrops. It's like deluge. But it's bringing and scraping all that top layer of old stuff off the land and creating the space for something new. And at the end of those chants, which is different from the Hulihia chant, chants with the Kulia chants, which is what we're talking about, is it ends with these two lines. And there are multiple Kulia chants, and they all kind of have the same system that's happening. And they end with Naki aloha ikono, which is an invitation to reciprocal exchange, to aloha, which is what we've been talking about. And aloha acknowledging the relationship that invites us along with the elements. So now we're directly engaging with the God, right? The natural phenomena towards restoration of the landscape. So in Hawaii prayer, you don't, so, oh, please, 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 you say, do this, which I'm still getting more and more comfortable with, but you're telling it because they're your family and they're a part of you. Okay. And then you say, haile maua, let's go together. We're going to do this together. You and I, you and the divine. So we're being invited into the biological process of new germination and growth through reciprocal exchange. So aloha then is the driving force in knowing what we need to do as humans to maintain uli, or balance in greater homeostasis. So when you saw all those like this or this continuums, the invitation to aloha and going together is how one way that you can navigate and find your balance in the greater homeodynamic system, at least from a Hawaiʻi Lifeway. Okay, and then the last part, which we'll go really fast over, but is just belonging to landscape versus land belongs to us. So we're going to talk that, so I just shared at the start about we only have really 2 seasons, but what we're entering right now is Lono season, which just means there's lots of atmospheric changes, kona winds, the winds are going to come in from a different direction, lots of lightning, and makahiki. So we'll start on the new lunar cycle that starts tomorrow, we'll start a brand new lunar month in Hawaii, and it's called makali'i. So there are these little, that means all these little sprouts and new eyes or new shoots are going to pop up. And it's a recognition of new beginnings, celebrations, and collective abundance. So this is kind of like our harvest period, right? The elements, the natural phenomena get too like active, so it's not super smart to be out doing all kinds of things. So now is the time to play. Enjoy the food and play. So how do you, in Hawaii worldview, you make sure your insides are ready to be in balance with what's going on externally. So you're not like pu'iwa, you're not super surprised when the big rains come. You're like, oh yeah, I'm ready on the inside. I was waiting for you, glad to see you. Okay, so that's one seasonal aspect, right? When we talk about Kealohilani, another one that's a little more political and a little more leader focused is Kamehameha III, who was one of our main chiefs, uttered this sentence, I don't know what he meant. Only he can tell us what he meant by that. One way to understand is to ensure a continuum for living in Hawaii. And we kind of talked about that all today, right? How do you ensure being able to live in this small island chain? So one of the awesome things that Kauikeoli did is a successful restoration of Hawaii's sovereignty in July 31st, 1843, but I'm going to come down to the importance of this date for here with us. He helped develop Hawaii's first constitution, blending ancestral and newer forms of government, set up a robust public school system, and just because we were pretty close to that date, this is the date that Britain and France recognized the independence of the Hawaii kingdom. So for a lot of people in Hawaii, they feel we are occupied, right? So that we're still a sovereign entity. Okay, so Kauikeʻoli was able to express stability and change as a leader. And he balances relatedness with his people, right? Okay. So here is our last one, boundaries. I'm glad boundaries came up, but that's maybe one of the ways that we can straddle stability and change. And Prentice Hemphill has this awesome quote about boundaries. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. So how do you maintain that aloha for the other and yourself, whatever the other is? And what if the boundaries, maybe it's way further than like, maybe it's like real far away. Maybe it's real close. Okay. That's a little bit more, but that's like a little bit how you can understand like structure and hierarchy, at least in Hawaii, but that's like super Hawaii specific stuff. And this is just a mahalo to all the people who have nourished and sustained me, my mom and my dad, the schools, my friends, my teachers. And then these are kind of the people who I go to when life is getting crazy. I love to listen and contemplate my Angelou, Esther Perel, and Brené Brown. Okay. I think, did I make it in the right time?
Dr. Hall, thank you so much. This was an incredible body of information. So we thank you for bringing us into our space. And thank you so much for opening our respective spaces and having us think about nature of Hawaii and about life so differently. At this point, I ask our wonderful chair and honorable distinguished director, Dr. Gabriela Miramontes, to close us off. Dr. Miramontes?
Thank you, Dr. Sonia. Much appreciated. Leahi, I always love hearing you present. Just there's always so much wisdom in your words, and sharing your culture, your background is always so transformational in its own right. So thank you for joining us today. And I don't mean the burning of the bridges, I mean the other kind of transformation. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our guests, thank you to your parents. This concludes our celebration of Native American Heritage Month. We are so privileged and honored to have you all here, helping us elevate the voices of all of our communities. I can't say that enough. I ask that you continue to join us. We have so much more coming up for the rest of the year and beyond. And if you ever want to continue to contribute or participate, by all means, feel free to join us as well. With that, thank you so much, everyone. I know that we went a little over time, but I didn't have the heart to stop you. No, you're good. I mean, I could hear you go on for hours. I just think it's so fascinating and fabulous that you're so open with sharing. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving all. Have a wonderful long weekend, hopefully. And we'll definitely see you all next time.